Alan is preparing a surprise for Tracy. Will he pursue Ashley once more? The Young and the Restless spoilers indicate that Alan Lawson has gone to Paris to arrange a surprise for Tracy Abbott. However, this could imply trouble since Alan is not acting like himself, and Ashley Abbott is still in Paris. Is Ashley as peril from Martin Lawson once again? In an abrupt manner, Alan Lawson and Tracy Abbott altered their plans. Although Tracy was coordinating the Abbott jet to convey her and Alan to Paris, Alan was absent, purchasing a commercial ticket. Alan informed Tracy that he had a surprise for her, and wished for her to meet him in a few days. Nevertheless, Tracy was perplexed, as they were supposed to be in the process of arranging their nuptials. What specifically is going on with Alan these days? Tracy believed she and Alan were on the same page after his proposal, at least until she saw those messages on his phone. Tracy was concerned, but Alan made it seem as though she were probing. Alan subsequently fled the city at the first opportunity, or did he? Alan requires time away from Tracy to figure out what happened at the clinic. Is he still in Genoa City after all? Alan Lawson is required to perform damage control. Phyllis Summers and Sharon Newman have evaded Alan's mousetrap. Unfortunately, that was not intended to be the case. Alan had rigged the room to fill with oxygen and kill both of them if they got too near. However, due to Nick Newman and Billy Abbott, that didn't go as planned. If Alan did go to Paris, he could be attempting to get his hands on Ashley, because he has already caused her deed to resurface. Alan attempted to cause similar issues with Phyllis and Sharon, but they didn't allow that to work, at least now until they escaped. However, Phyllis seems to be struggling badly right now to maintain her sanity. Ashley Abbott feels almost normal. Ashley revealed to her daughter that she felt almost normal but not quite. After all of this time in therapy, Ashley hasn't come back to normal. Whatever Martin did to mess with her mind was just too much. Could Alan see her vulnerability and go after her again? Will Martin wind up messing with Ashley's head once again? Will Tracy recognize what is going on and get away from Alan before it is too late? Could Alan wind up locking Tracy up with Ashley to keep his secret hidden for some master plan that fans have yet to see? It seems that it could be May sweeps before the truth comes out. What more will Tracy learn about her fiancé by then? Tracy astonished Diane and Jack at the Genoa City Athletic Club with news that she and Alan were getting married. She wanted to borrow the company jet so they could wed in Paris. Tracy picked up on Jack's apprehension. Tracy said Paris was the most enchanting city in the world. Who wouldn't want to get married in Paris? Diane asked. Jack felt it was being hurried. Tracy says Alan is so anxious to sweep her away. It's impetuous, Jack says. After all, Alan just proposed a few hours ago. Tracy told Jack and Diane that Alan had to dash off. He'd been dealing with security issues. Jack was intrigued, so Tracy gently told Jack he was being a little dramatic. Jack noted that he'd never seen Tracy this pleased. Why the sudden concern? Tracy wondered. She told Jack that Alan did not capture her heart. She gave it to him. Jack feared Tracy would get married to Alan without her family. Tracy says no, that won't happen. Alan had no family, and he wanted all the Abbotts present. Tracy hoped that Jack would walk her down the aisle. Diane said that Tracy probably didn't want to speak about her ex-husbands after Jack brought up their late father, John, walking her down the aisle at other weddings. Tracy said Jack reminded her of John. Kyle then showed up and Diane wondered if Phyllis faked her own kidnapping in view of the fact that she had done that once before. Kyle informed them that Phyllis and Sharon were unharmed following their ordeal. Ironically, Tracy said she hoped that they capture whoever was responsible. Tracy described what little she knew about the alerts and the breaches that Alan had been receiving. She mentioned a facility. That's some coincidence, Kyle said, sharing that Summer said something about Phyllis and Sharon being detained at a clinic. The idea of Alan being connected to the clinic was dismissed, and more talk of the wedding continued. Maybe Harrison could be the ring bearer? Diane mentioned redecorating to the Newman household, but Jack had cold feet about changes. The festive dinner is interrupted by Alan calling. Kyle noted how Tracy had given her emotions to the family. Diane said they'll have to share that heart with Alan. Tracy told them that Alan called from the airport. He was going to Paris alone, and Tracy would join him in a few days. Tracy says Alan needs time, And he's preparing a surprise. Well, this fellow is full of surprises, isn't he? Jack asked. At Crimson Lights, Sharon brought Nick a scone and Yorkshire tea on the house, but promised her that it wasn't an inducement. It was a suggestion. Nick wondered if Sharon wanted Nick to accompany her and Faith to see Noah in Europe. Nick said it was never a good moment to be away from Newman Enterprises. Sharon playfully said they have Wi-Fi in Europe. Nick stressed that Sharon requires time with Noah. He recapped Sharon and Phyllis being abducted by a psycho. Besides, Faith needed her mama. Sharon said what kept her going was her daughters needing her. Nick told Sharon she had been so strong. She needed to let her daughters be there for her. She needed time to heal and promised to keep an eye on things till she came back. Sharon told Nick he may know her better than she knew herself. It won't be the same without you there, though. Sharon lamented about going abroad without Nick. After all I've gone through, it would mean so much to me. Nick asked Sharon to be honest with him, and pondered if she ever thought about them. You and me? Sharon wondered. Nick said he knew he could be clueless sometimes, but he sensed there was something there. Have I gotten lonely sometimes? Sure, Sharon said. Do I miss what we had? When it was good, of course. Sharon, in turn, asked Nick if he'd ever thought about her again. Of course I've thought about it, Nick acknowledged. But he said he knew he'd harmed her. She knew she'd wounded him too. Sharon said she can readily forgive Nick, as he's forgiven her for things. You are my best friend, Sharon confessed. Nick said he appreciated where he and Sharon were at the moment. He'd always be there for her no matter what. That was never going to alter. Sharon confessed that she missed Noah, and was looking forward to spending time with him. Nick shrugged off his not going by joking he'd be this helicopter parent, complaining about the rain. But he agreed to give it some more thought. Summer also showed up at Crimson Lights, and was pleased she ran into Nick. She was concerned about Phyllis, because the whole kidnapping ordeal hit her hard. Sharon suggested Phyllis might need to see a specialist. Summer asked Nick to go with her to check on Phyllis. Nick told Sharon he promised to think about what they talked about. Sharon said if there's anything she can do, let her know. At the ranch, Adam was talking to his editor, telling him to make a story about Billy's new media company, an opinion piece opposite the editorial page, since they didn't have multiple sources to go with what Adam believed to be true. He was astonished when Chelsea appeared. Chelsea took Adam's outerwear and turned on some romantic music. She was there for vengeance. Adam thought she meant something bad by that. She had also cooked something for him. Chelsea said the meal Adam made for her was one of the greatest meals of her life. Over a goblet of wine, Chelsea told Adam it was never too late. Adam said he saw a couple in their 80s, and they were holding hands. Chelsea theorized they met when they were young, and are living blissfully ever after. Adam offered that it could have been a couple that had problems, but they eventually got it right. Chelsea told Adam she's very content where they are. Chelsea removed lids from her and Adam's entrees. This almost looks too beautiful to eat, Adam said as he dug into quiche Lorraine. Romance requires mystery, Chelsea responded after Adam told her she had to reveal how she made this. Adam said this was one of the finest meals he'd ever had. He said Connor was at the main residence with Johnny, and they'd be gaming all night. Adam asked why it went from being simple to hard to talk to Chelsea. Maybe we're nervous? Chelsea asked. We don't have to be perfect, we can be messy, Adam told Chelsea. Next, Chelsea unveiled a chocolate confection for Adam. She wished to try again. She fed him a slice of cake on a fork. This is the best cake that I have ever had, Adam said. Adam announced that the dinner was perfectly acceptable, as she wiped frosting off his face. Thank you so much. That's very kind of you, he said. Then, he playfully placed frosting on her nose. Adam told Chelsea to just go with her intuition. He went in for a kiss and Chelsea responded. The action shifted to the bedroom where Chelsea said she was eager to make some happy memories. Sharon and Phyllis remained in the basement prison determined to locate the surveillance camera their captor had been using. They decided to openly search for it since they knew the voice was watching them anyway. Phyllis determined they needed to let out a little aggression during their search, so they chose to just trash the place, and it felt good. The women tore apart pillows and smashed lights while cursing Jordan and Ian, as they believed those two were ultimately culpable for what had been happening to them. Sharon also destroyed a bookcase and offered Phyllis an apology for what she unwittingly did to her family while on PCP. It turned out that Alan's plan may have worked when Phyllis told Sharon that she didn't want to speak about that anymore. Phyllis eventually saw that she needed to stop blaming Sharon for that. Finally united, Sharon and Phyllis gazed up at the loudspeaker and told their captor that they were in this together and would get out of this mess together. Sharon and Phyllis even shared a few minutes of amusement when they joked about Nick being the one to set them free. They then thought of all the things they had to live for. Cassidy first, in your new job with Billy. You have to fight for that, Sharon said. The women then searched some more and eventually discovered the camera, teeny tiny little webcam, likening their search to an Easter egg hunt. In fact, Sharon and Phyllis discovered they could, maybe conceivably, who knows, one day be pals. Phyllis was impressed by how funny Sharon could actually be, particularly when she said, I think you've solved the riddle. We were kidnapped by the Easter Bunny. Sharon also called the decor backyard chic. Once the camera was dismantled, Sharon and Phyllis sat back and waited for their captor to come to them. They knew he would be perturbed by no longer being able to see them and would be there soon. Meanwhile, Nick and Billy continued their long, languid drive to Havenhurst. Nick got in touch with Summer and gave his daughter an update. He promised her that he would bring her mother home soon. Billy acknowledged that he knew the last few months had been absolutely awful for the Newmans, commencing with Sharon's odd behavior and hallucinations. The two men also knew that Chance was going to be fairly annoyed when they showed up at the clinic along with the police team. He was not going to like them going rogue. Chance isn't going to like us following him there, so the best we can do is follow his lead, Nick suggested. Nick was perplexed by all of this. Why would someone kidnap Sharon and Phyllis and then lead them straight to them for a rescue? I can't stop wrapping my head around this whole thing. I don't get it, he said. When they got to the clinic, Nick and Billy found out that they were correct. Chance was not happy at all, particularly when Nick suggested they call in the Newman security team to help. There were already too many hands in the pot, and the security team would just complicate matters more. Chance wanted to do things by the book and wait for a search warrant, and for the property manager to let them in. An angry Nick wanted to surge right in, and not wait for someone to give them permission. There were baby mothers to be saved after all. We have been hanging on. What are we supposed to tell the women if they're in there? And I believe they are. Do we tell them to hang on too? Nick asked. Chance just sighed, and reminded Nick that this could be a ruse. Thankfully, the warrant soon came in, but they still had to wait for the owner while Nick and Billy peered through windows and became antsy. When the confused landlord eventually got to the scene, he informed the men that the place had been abandoned for years, and he never got calls about it. Even the keys didn't work, so the police, Nick, and Billy had to find another way in. They finally just picked the lock and assaulted the building. Meanwhile, the women were astonished to get a message from their captor, while they waited by the door with thermoses as weapons. Not very sportsmanlike, ladies. You lose, the message read. A panicked Sharon fretted that they had just given themselves a death sentence by dismantling the camera. Maybe they misunderstood the riddles. However, Phyllis wasn't about to give up, not after they had come so far. Sharon and Phyllis took one another's hands and breathed profoundly. They were going to get out of there no matter what. They had not realized that gas began to flood the room. When they start to choke and smell the gas, they find the valve and attempt to seal it, but to no avail. Through all of this, music began playing that alarmed the women some more. In the hallway, Chance, Nick, and Billy could hear the music, but they couldn't see the women. They're here. I know it, Nick declared as he called out their names. Sharon could swear she heard voices. Too unfortunate, Phyllis thought she was imagining it. Instead, she was shouting at the loudspeaker. As the women choked and gasped, they could see the doorknob moving, and knew someone was out there. Billy and Nick were on the other side, intent to get to them. Phyllis was in much worse shape than Sharon and passed out. Sharon realized who was on the other side of the door. When Chance said he was going to shoot the door open, a panicked yet relieved Sharon begged him not to. The spark could cause an explosion thanks to the gas leak. That prompted Nick to kick in the door, where they saw a relieved but distressed Sharon and Phyllis. Sharon knew Nick would eventually find them, and that he did. The men took Nick and Sharon to the ranch to recuperate. They insisted they were fine and didn't need to go to the ER. The EMTs agreed that they didn't need the hospital chance Billy, and Nick that the police discovered that everything that happened to them had been carefully planned and timed, right down to the gas leak. When Nick asked Sharon and Phyllis how they ended up at the clinic, they explained that they had been each kidnapped separately and brought there. When they woke, they realized they had been trapped together. They didn't have a notion who had done this to them. We never knew who it was. We did hear their voice though, Sharon said. And they spoke to us in this distorted voice. We don't know if it was a male or a woman, Phyllis added. The women worried that Jordan and Ian were still alive, but Chance assured them that they weren't. Then whoever it was is just as sick as they were, if not more so. If that's even conceivable, Sharon surmised. Phyllis added, Ian and Jordan were just your garden variety psychopaths. Whoever this person is, they are ill. It was like they liked to watch us suffer. They liked the activity, like a game of cat and mouse, and you know how that ends. The mouse dies, Sharon said ominously. Meanwhile, at the Genoa City Athletic Club, Tracy couldn't help noticing all the notifications on Alan's phone. She picked it up while he was in the bathroom and saw multiple messages saying that security had been breached. Tracy looked puzzled and pondered what the heck was going on.